Ladies and gentlemen of YouTube and social media and, in fact, the world, thank you all for taking the time to watch my presentation. My name is Zach Jones and today I'm here to tell you all about the natural world and why we need to protect it. But I did something a little bit like this previously last year, but I've done a bit more research into other animals that are at risk, not just in Africa, but also in other parts of the world. As many of you know from my previous videos, I've been passionate, fascinated, and bordering on obsessed with the natural world. Birds, mammals, reptiles, amphibians, sharks, and even extinct animals ever since I was a boy. And I have only recently started to develop an interest in insects and other invertebrates, which are creatures that don't have backbones like us. But unfortunately, not everyone shares my passion about the natural world or want to do anything to protect it. And that is why I'm here today, to try and educate you all about the natural world and why we need to protect it, and also because now more than ever we need to learn from our past mistakes with the natural world, and we need to protect it now, or we could be facing another mass extinction event that hasn't been seen since the time of the dinosaurs ended. And I will be telling you about these animals from Africa and Asia, which is where the wildlife is most at risk. I will use animals that went extinct in the past because of us as examples for why we need to learn from our past mistakes. Right, I shall begin with Africa. And the first animal I'm going to show you is the largest land animal, elephants. To be precise, forest elephants. Now, forest elephants are found in the Congo rainforest, which makes up much of the Central African countries. They may look like the elephants you see across Africa, but they are their own separate species. They're shorter they're smaller in stature to the savanna elephants. They live in smaller herds, but of course, sorry about that. And of course, their tusks are straighter, so they can move easier through the forests. But what they lack in stature to their savanna cousins, they make up for with a very fierce and fiery temper. And that is mainly down to us, because we are destroying their habitat, and humans have been encroaching on their land, which is causing elephants to come into conflict with them. But the main reason, and also the worst reason why elephants are in danger all over Africa, is this. For their tusks. Elephants are hunted for their tusks, because their tusks are made of a substance called ivory, and ivory is very, very valuable. I mean, it's prized throughout Africa. Well, not just through Africa, it's prized throughout Asia and the Middle East, and ivory is used for many things. It's used to make jewellery, ornaments, Arabian dagger hilts, and even China have decided to use it as chopsticks, which have been in very high demand. And because of that, elephants are being slaughtered by poachers every day. Perhaps every year, as many as 10,000 elephants in Africa are killed simply for their tusks, from using guns to snares and poison. Of course, forest elephants are more at risk because their tusks are made of a much denser ivory that's easier to carve, and also it has a rosy pinkish hue to it, which is more prized and in heavier demand for ivory carvers. And if these animals are destroyed in my lifetime, then of course it won't just be bad news for us, it will be bad news for the habitat they live in, because elephants are habitat formers. one thing, they take out the smallest saplings and leave big open spaces for bigger trees to grow, and they actually form the paths that humans walk on in the forests, but also they can use their tusks to dig holes to get to water that other animals couldn't get to. And also, they even help our close cousins, western lowland gorillas, find food. So if they're wiped out, then it's going to be very, very bad news. And now, the next animal I'm going to show you all is another animal of Africa that is probably more threatened by poachers than the elephants. It is the rhino. To be precise, the black and white rhinos. Rhinos are found throughout Africa and Asia, and they come in all different shapes and sizes, but they all share horns. But the ones in Africa are the black rhino and the white rhino, and of course my mother spent a large part of her childhood in Africa, and she actually told me that the name the black and white rhino isn't anything to do with colour. It was actually a mistranslation by Europeans from the Afrikaners, like Dutch descendants of Africa. But how you tell a black and white rhino apart is you look at the mouth. On a white rhino, it has a flat mouth because it's a grazer, which means it feeds on grass. But a black rhino has a beak-shaped mouth because it's a browser, so it feeds on low shrubs and trees. And a black rhino has such strong jaws, it can actually snap off branches as thick around as my arm. But of course, the white rhino is also the most sociable of all the rhino, and it's always found in big herds. But of course, every species that's found throughout Africa and Asia are in terrible trouble, and it's all for their horns. Rhino horn is made of a substance called keratin. It's the same protein that our fingernails and our hair are made of. But while it has in the past been used by rhinos for fighting and for defence, unfortunately it's what's landing them in trouble, because many countries like China, Vietnam and Taiwan believe it can be used for medicines, when there is absolutely no scientific proof that it works. But regardless, and of course rhino horn is even used for Arabian dagger hilts, like elephant tusks, but also it's sold in China and Vietnam as trinkets and even ground up and served in drinks. And it's actually believed that rhino horn can actually fetch about $60,000 per kilo. And because of that, these animals are being slaughtered by poachers who run them down with helicopters, shoot them with AK-47 machine guns, and just hack off their horns with chainsaws. And all because of this, these horns have now become worth far more than gold. And it's not just the adult rhinos that are affected, it's also their calves that are affected, because quite often when their mothers are killed, rhino calves are left to die because their horns haven't developed properly. And a lone rhino calf out in Africa would be an easy meal for hyenas, lions, jackals, leopards, and even African painted dogs. But like with the elephants, there are people working to do something about this. I mean, there's armed patrols, anti-poaching squads, and also quite often rhinos with radio collars on are less likely to be targeted, because those poachers will know that they are not safe to go after, because the rangers will know whether something is wrong. And while I do sympathise that some people can be desperate, and when you have nothing and there's this opportunity to make a vast amount of money to provide for yourself and your family, you take it. But there are better ways of going about that. Because the next animal I'm going to show you all is probably the most trafficked animal on the planet, the pangolin. Pangolins are found throughout Africa and Asia, but of course, I know what a lot of you are probably thinking, this must be some sort of reptile, but actually, pangolins are not reptiles at all, they're mammals. They're in the same family as anteaters and armadillos and the aardvark, but they're the only mammal to be completely covered in scales, and that's down to the fact, down to what they eat, because pangolins aren't called ant and termite terminators, because what they feed on, like ants and termites, because they can bite and sting and they have a very nasty bite and sting. You know, the scales, their scales, which are also made of keratin, like our fingernails and our hair, actually serve to protect them against the bites and stings of their food. But unfortunately, it's their scales that are landing them in trouble. Like rhino horn, pangolin scales are believed by China to have medicinal purposes, which is absolutely bloody ridiculous. There is no scientific proof that it works. And as my mum pointed out, if keratin had medicinal purposes, just chew on your fingernails. But also, pangolin meat is also seen as a delicacy in some Asian countries like China, Vietnam, Taiwan and Cambodia. But also their scales are used for trinkets as well. And one of the main reasons pangolins are so easy to take is down to their defence mechanism here. Because their defence mechanism to protect their soft underbelly is to basically roll themselves up into a tight ball, and that just makes it easier for poachers to just take them, put them in a sack and carry them away. And without these animals around, then ants and termite populations are going to get way out of hand. And of course, the next group of animals is one of the most misunderstood, and in my opinion, one of the most beautiful of all creatures, vultures. Vultures are found throughout the world, but these ones are found in Africa and Asia, of course. When people see them, the first thing they say is that they are very ugly-looking birds, but that's mainly down to the fact that because they are scavengers, which means they are animals that feed on dead or dying animals, they have to be able to get their heads right inside a carcass without sullying their feathers with blood. And they are known as the undertakers of the bush, because vultures are also one of the most important animals in the world. And because while many people believe that they are not very pleasant looking, I personally think that they are gorgeous. But of course, as I was saying earlier, vultures are some of the most important animals on the planet because they're known as the undertakers of the bush. So when an animal dies in Africa or Asia, vultures come in and they consume it, and of course in a way, they actually help prevent the spread of diseases like Ebola, botulism, tuberculosis, malaria, and all sorts of other nasty diseases. But unfortunately, it's their scavenging nature that has been landing them in trouble in Africa and Asia. I mean, there are many reasons for that. I mean, the worst are farmers and poachers. Because farmers use a veterinary drug on their cattle, and when the cows die, the vultures consume it. It builds up in their systems, causes things like kidney failure, and eventually it kills them. But even worse is poachers. Poachers quite often kill them because they give away their positions to the park rangers, but if they don't shoot them, then even worse, they poison them. And it's not just the adults that can be affected by that, because vultures only have one chick every 2 years, and quite often they bring food back to their nest. And if a parent brings back poisoned meat to the nest, then that's 2 generations of vultures wiped out like that. And it's believed that in both Asia and Africa, these animals have been lost in more than 95% of their range, and without them, then carcasses are just going to build up everywhere in the bush and spread diseases like botulism, tuberculosis, and even Ebola